Here is an overview of our current funding options. You will recall several of these from my fiscal constraints presentation in March. One revenue source legally available to us is a gross production tax, but since oil and gas production is currently prohibited within the Tulsa city limits, it is not shown as an option. These lists of benefits and drawbacks are not comprehensive, but are rather intended to highlight considerations. For instance, let's talk about sales tax. The benefits are it's certainly familiar to the voters. It allows us to tax visitors to Tulsa, and it also ensures that everybody pays something. By the same token, it has certain drawbacks. Sales tax is an extremely regressive tax. I think the voters may ultimately reach their limit of tolerance, and it's an extremely volatile revenue source. Ad valorem tax or property taxes are a stable revenue source, familiar to the voters, and it gives us additional taxing capacity. It also taxes commercial property owners, and it's progressive in the sense that it costs the same amount or roughly the same amount of money to provide a residential street in Midtown as it would in other less prosperous areas of Tulsa. Of course, it has drawbacks as well. Again, voters may reach their limit of tolerance, and any ad valorem taxes cannot be used for operating expenses or maintenance. They must be limited to capital improvements. An income tax, although legally available to us, would allow us to tax those working in Tulsa but living elsewhere, and theoretically it is less regressive. However, it would create an administrative nightmare, perhaps a voter revolt, and I think would probably stifle economic development. A fuel tax is a true user's fee. Unfortunately, it probably wouldn't generate sufficient revenue to have much of an impact, and it has an established unpopularity. Impact and assessment fees. Impact and assessment fees haven't been used in the city for a long time. The benefits are the beneficiaries of the improvements would pay for the improvements, and it would allow us to get ahead of the curve. The drawback would be developer pushback, if history is any indication. County and state funding, well, we already pay the taxes. It returns the money to municipalities and invests in the state. It would improve the quality of life, and it would also enhance our economic development and tax base. The drawback is we must persuade our elected officials at the county and state level to help us. And there's also a lack of voter understanding of how our tax dollars are allocated. I think this slide is relatively self-explanatory. Can we do a better job of matching funding sources to their impacts? For instance, new street and intersection expansion. Perhaps we implement impact fees or assessments. Again, the reasoning would be that the direct beneficiaries would pay for the enhancements. Replaced and rehabilitated streets. Logical funding source on that might be the ad valorem or property tax, in the sense that good streets enhance property values. A good street in front of your house should certainly have a positive impact on the value of your house. Finally, with preventive maintenance, logical funding source there would be the sales tax. This is an operating cost just like changing the oil in your car. Unfortunately, as you've seen, we have not allocated sufficient resources to preventive maintenance to avoid our current dilemma. There is room to reprioritize streets, but will we continue to seek and find ways to become more efficient? You can see that we have already reduced the number of city employees over the past decade. In fact, in 2006, the city of Tulsa had 168 fewer employees than it had a decade earlier. This is a slide from the fiscal constraints presentation. It underscores the continued budget focus on public safety, another item high on everybody's list of priorities. In summary, this shows that the percentage of the general fund dedicated to public safety has increased from 53% to 56% between 2001-2002 to 2006-2007. Furthermore, it shows that in order to do so, we have literally transferred financial resources from Parks and Public Works, the department responsible for our streets, to police and fire. The resources dedicated to public safety have steadily increased from 50% of the general fund in 1999-2000 to almost 70% in our last budget. This is a disturbing trend and one that must be addressed if we expect to fix our streets. This slide shows the allocation of the sales taxes levied in the city of Tulsa. The city itself receives only 35% of the total. Even more disturbing is that less than 5% of the aggregate sales tax, which includes the amount collected for the county and state, goes to Tulsa streets. We need to reprioritize on a broader scale. The city of Tulsa's portion of the sales tax rate has remained the same over the last quarter century. During the same period, the state and county have added more than 3.5 cents, or more than 41% of the current sales tax burden in Tulsa. Citizens have seen their taxes increase significantly. The city of Tulsa, which is responsible for providing most of the basic services, has maintained a constant tax rate, yet has been viewed as the problem. We need to educate voters. Every time the county or the state increases the sales tax, it adversely affects the city of Tulsa's image, since we are not able to provide the basic services our citizens expect, and it also limits our funding potential to do so. While approximately $500 million of property tax is levied in the county each year, less than 4% goes to streets in Tulsa. You can see that Tulsa Technology Center, the county, Tulsa Community College, and the library all receive more funding than our streets, and this doesn't include the K-12 public schools. Rather than distributing small income tax rebate checks that result in marginal individual benefit, returning the funds to us in bulk for a dedicated purpose such as streets would provide a tangible benefit to all citizens. The OML is essentially the trade association for the municipalities in Oklahoma. Most, if not all, of the cities and towns in Oklahoma are facing the same financial pressure we are in Tulsa. By returning a portion of its take to the communities that generate the revenue, the state would be reinvesting in those communities and help ensure prosperity for everyone. As you can see, under this proposal brought forth by the OML, if the state were to return a half penny of its 4.5 pennies, Tulsa would have access to an additional $35 million that we could apply towards our streets. That pretty well wraps things up. Thank you for investing the time to learn more about our street network and how we fund infrastructure improvements. For more information and future developments on this and other issues, please visit the City Council's website at www.tulsacouncil.org.